Welcome to the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast. It's August 31, 2019, and this is episode 674. This week I answer a question from listener Derek Bezadenhout, who recently asked what happens with mirrorless cameras when we add an extender or teleconverter. So I'm dedicating this week's episode to answering Derek's excellent question, which I'll read out to you now. As we know, when using an extender, we typically lose one stop of light for a 1.4 times extender or two stops of light through the lens for a 2 times extender. And when using an extender on a DSLR, because of the way the focusing mechanism works, either the camera won't be able to focus at all, or it will be able to use the center focus point. With mirrorless cameras, the focus mechanism is completely different. It uses the main sensor instead of dedicated focus points. So, does that mean that with an extender on a mirrorless body, we would be able to reliably use all or most of the available AF points, rather than just the middle one? So I can't believe I didn't mention this in my EOS R reviews, but I didn't, so I really appreciate this question. Thanks, Derek. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that you surmised exactly what happens as you posed your question. The camera manufacturers have made strides in recent years, enabling most DSLR cameras to focus with extenders down to an aperture of f8. What this means is if you are using an f4 lens and put a 2 times extender on, which reduces your aperture by 2 stops, your camera's widest aperture changes from f4 to f8, and you maintain autofocus on at least the center focus point, sometimes more depending on the camera. If, however, the minimum aperture of your lens is smaller than f4, for example like my 100 to 400mm lens, with its widest aperture of 4.5 at 100mm or 5.6 when zoomed into 400mm, on a DSLR that only focuses down to f8, because I would be forced down to f11 at 400mm when adding 2 stops, the autofocus stops working. Because mirrorless cameras focus differently, as Derek pointed out, at least as far as my Canon EOS R goes, it will continue to focus down to f11. And what's more, according to Canon's website, you can continue to use autofocus across the full range of 88% by 100% of the image frame if you're using Mark III extenders, which I am. This is the same as when you're using no extenders. Apparently, if you're using Mark I or Mark II extenders, that is reduced slightly to 80% by 80% of the total image frame, which is still very good in my opinion. When we consider that many DSLR cameras bunch the focus points up towards the center of the frame, it becomes quite limiting to where you can place your subject in the frame, especially when photographing something like birds in flight, when you actually might want to place the subject much closer to the edges sometimes. I tried to think of a way to show you the speed of the autofocusing system and how wide an area the camera will autofocus across, and figured it was probably best just to show you in a video. So I hooked my EOS R up to a video capture box and recorded my screen as I switched between my 100 to 400mm f4.5 to 5.6 Mark II lens with no extender fitted, to using it with a 1.4 times extender and then a 2 times extender. I also show the 200 to 400mm with its built-in 1.4 times extender engaged and a 2 times extender fitted. So both are focusing at f11 with the 200 to 400mm lens at a focal length of 1120mm. Finally, I disengaged the built-in 1.4 times extender to show you the effects of just having the external 2 times extender fitted. For all of these demonstrations, I was using the Canon control ring mount adapter to fit these EF lenses to the RF mount on the EOS R. Things to note are that the autofocus does slow down very slightly, especially when using the 1.4 times and 2 times extenders together. Also note that I did these demonstrations in my studio with bird ornaments, so in reality, when the autofocus has further to physically travel, it can be a little bit slower than you'll see in the video as well. Anyway, to view the video, you'll have to go to the blog post, which is at mbp.ac/674, and the video is embedded in the middle of the post. So please go and take a look. It's only about 4 minutes long, so it won't take you very long to look. Okay, so welcome back. I hope you found that interesting or at least useful to see. I find it amazing that we can now use autofocus at this level, down to f11 apertures. I noticed too that Canon have just announced a firmware update to improve the autofocus further. On the US website, it just says coming soon, but in Japan, it is slated for the end of September. Here's what Canon are saying. A new firmware update for autofocus with the EOS R and EOS RP cameras will soon be available. This exciting new update will offer enhanced AF functions to help you better view, track and capture subjects. The 3 main components are: eye detection AF will be improved so that you can better focus on a moving subject's eyes even if it's far away, or when the face appears small in the viewfinder. AF frame tracking is improved so there is virtually no delay between the actual focusing and when it's displayed in the AF frame, helping you to continuously track the subject and shoot comfortably. And the third point is the AF function works faster overall, so even at a distance you can capture the subject quickly. This firmware will be available via a free download in the coming weeks. Stay tuned. So that's the end of the Canon announcement. I look forward to seeing how these changes will affect autofocusing, and can't wait to see where the autofocus on mirrorless cameras leads us next. I honestly did not expect autofocus on these cameras to be anywhere near as good as it's proven to be. Being able to focus on a seagull a split second before it snatches a fish from the sea, as in the photograph that I've embedded on the blog from this year's Japan wildlife tours, I had no complaints, but improvements are always welcome. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there for this week. Thanks once again to Derek for a great question. Also note that I'm running behind on the development of my new mentorship system. Various things and other commitments have kept me a little too busy lately, but I am working on it and hope to release something very soon. Thanks very much for listening today. If you enjoy this podcast, please share a link with your friends. Subscribe in iTunes or your favorite podcast program to ensure uninterrupted delivery. If you have a moment to rate the podcast or leave us a review in iTunes, that helps to keep us relevant in the huge number of podcasts out there now. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, and links to everything that I'm up to are at martinbaileyphotography.com, so do drop by and take a look. I'll be back next week with another episode, but in the meantime, you take care and have a great week, whatever you're doing. Bye-bye.